I lived in Iraq for 5 years. I lived in Afghanistan for several years. And I loved the people. I loved being there. Right. However, I was a foreign woman in a culture where none of the local women could live like I was living. Not even a snowball's chance in hell that they could even get close to that. I mean, let's not forget, in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan today, women are held as prisoners in their own home. And now, and they're treated as domestic chattel. I mean, young girls are traded, to settle domestic disputes or to pay for a cow or whatever, sold off to be raped every day of their lives by a man 20, 30, 40 years older than them. They're banned from public life. They're banned from school. They're banned from all forms of education. They're banned from the workplace. I mean, they're prisoners in their home. They have no rights. I mean, are you kidding me? Welcome back to the Rogue Roundtable with Lara, Logan, and my esteemed co-host, Luke Coffey. We want to begin today with a couple thoughts on what has been happening lately around us. I'm kind of annoyed that this Signal story has gotten such traction because it's pretty much the same old tactics that we're seeing at play here. This is reminiscent of the Trump administration when they were talking about Russia collusion, and then it was the Magnitsky meeting. There was that meeting that happened in Trump Tower, and then it's sort of, what we saw happen was that the Trump administration lurched from one manufactured fake crisis to the next, and they were constantly playing defense. Well, Trump started really strong this time around, with Doge and all the things that they were uncovering. It was staggering. And every day there was something new. But what seems to be happening now is more and more and more the administration is going from offense to defense. What bothers me about that? Well, nobody wins on defense typically, right? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that this issue of lawfare that was so effective first time round is still being effective. It's not as effective, and people are speaking up this time, and the administration is prepared. They've been meticulous about the way they've crafted certain orders and so on, but it's not, it's not foolproof. And so what we have now is a situation where increasingly the administration seems to be slowing down. Now, I recognize I'm not inside the administration. I'm not sitting in strategy meetings. I'm not speaking from insider knowledge. I'm looking at the landscape as it appears around us based on what we know. And what we are seeing is that there is no real indication yet that anyone is going to be held accountable for things like treason, things like sedition, treason and sedition, subversion, conspiracy, right? Real legal conspiracies. And as long as people are able to get away with that kind of thing, we know they're just going to keep on doing it. What I am hearing from multiple different sources is that inside DOJ, Pam Bondi has a real issue in that the tactics are stole, and stole. So she may order something to be investigated or something to be done. They'll say, yes, sir, ma'am, we'll get right on it. And they're going to do absolutely nothing about it. It's very obvious that the strategy you're looking at here is to ride out the Trump administration, to just wait it out. If you can, cripple them in the midterms and just keep putting them on the defense over and over and over again. Whether it's a real crisis, a manufactured crisis, it really doesn't matter. Well, that is disconcerting because until we see people held accountable, it's hard to see how that's going to change. And it's not just happening inside DOJ. It's happening inside DEA. It's also happening inside the military. This is a real issue. And if the Trump administration isn't seen to be doing a lot more on the legal side, it's a pretty bleak picture that's starting to emerge. Luke, having said all of that, one bright positive sign that has taken place is the revoking of security clearances. Trump has done a number of orders. I think it's 3 orders now, right?
Right.
And basically, he is upending this system that has become normal to us, but is really quite crazy, where people who get security clearances to do a particular job, when they leave that job, they keep their clearance. Why?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Right? Why do you still, if you're Kamala Harris, you were vice president,
right.
You had a security clearance because you needed it for your job. Your position gave you access to privileged information, secret information. So when you're no longer the vice president, why do you still need that access?
Exactly. Especially if you're working against the will of the American people, if you knowingly, if it's revealed that way. So we've got some the Biden family, Joseph Biden.
This is according to the latest executive order.
The latest.
Yeah.
Kamala, Hillary Clinton, Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid.
Yeah.
Norm Eisen.
Yeah.
Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andrew Wiseman.
Oh, wow.
Liz Cheney, crying Adam Kissinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman. And
Vindman, that traitor.
Yeah, and then other members of the Biden family, but also we've got General Milley.
Unbelievable.
And
Brennan,
right?
Sorry. John Brennan.
Okay,
so if you look at some of those, this is like a who's who of treason and sedition.
Exactly.
I mean, all of these people are part of the conspiracy to undermine a duly elected president, which is illegal under U.S. Code, 18 U.S. Code, Chapter 115, right? And people can look it up and read it for themselves. They don't have to take my word for it. Norm Eisen, now, he's something else, that guy. Norm Eisen and David Brock were together at CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics, right? This is supposed to be another one of these bipartisan, nonpartisan sort of, organizations that's also a 501c3. And this has been one of the main forces behind the lawfare, weaponizing the legal system against the people of this country.
Right.
And Norm Eisen now has a podcast with that horrible woman from the New York Times. What is it? Rubin.
Okay.
Janet Rubin. I mean, these two, it's quite incredible. I mean, if we actually had a justice system that was working and we had people that are going to hold them accountable, these kind of people are top of the list.
Right.
I mean, who else did you have on there? Lisa Monaco. She's another big name on there, been heavily involved in subverting the Trump administration the first time around and continuing to do so now. So why would you give your political enemies access to privileged information that allows them to undermine and subvert your government? That's the most ridiculous thing ever. Thank goodness Trump is actually doing something about it this time around.
But of course, what they're doing is saying it's retribution, and they're turning the same thing that they claimed that we were saying when they were using it against Trump. Now they're saying that it's retribution because of it is because of the lawfare, right? I mean that's because
John Brennan went on television for years saying that Donald Trump was a Russian spy.
Exactly.
That his handler was Vladimir Putin. And, one lie after another, after another, after another. Why does a man like that, who's...
Studio Dog
wants
loud
to be here.
today.
Why does a man like that, who is openly subverting and lying about the President of the United States, why does he have access to privileged information? Your security clearance... Honestly, if you look at the law, this is a determination not of the Department of Justice. This is not their jurisdiction. It falls under the Department of Defense. And who is the commander-in-chief? Who's the head of the Department of Defense? Donald Trump.
Right.
So this is why, even though they're mad about it, even though they're, they can yell about it all they like in the media, they can't do anything to change it because he absolutely has the authority to revoke their clearances.
Yeah.
Just the same way by the way, that when you have an appointment, that they try to hold up their clearances, right? Tulsi Gabbard, all of these people, they try to hold up their clearances. Who's doing that? Department of Justice. Why are you letting them?
Right.
They don't have jurisdiction.
And didn't Biden do it after he took presidency with Trump? Isn't that true?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think you're right
No, he
about
did.
that, but I don't remember
He
100%.
pulled it. Yeah.
He did pull it,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, so they don't hesitate to do this, but it's just that there's weird things in government that have sort of crept in. Typically, when you get a security clearance, you're hired to do a job, or in the military, they would call it a billet, right? And that's what your clearance is supposed to be for. So when you're no longer doing that job, I don't think you should still have a clearance.
Yeah. Well, it's argued that previous presidents want to be able to advise present ones, so that's why.
I don't care.
Yeah, you don't care.
No, I don't care. Do you care?
No. I don't either.
do you want a previous president? You want Obama advising?
No.
No. Right? And for that matter, Bush?
And why is Biden on this list? I mean, why isn't Obama on this list?
Well, didn't he already do Obama? I don't know. We'd have to check
Yeah,
that
we need
one.
to check on that one.
Okay, let's talk about a really big story here in Texas.
And I've gotten a lot of texts and emails from a lot of people, us being in Texas, about this topic. So I'm glad we're covering it.
And it's not just Texas, right?
No, it's not.
No, it echoes across the country.
It does. Indeed.
So this story is really about something called Epic City, which is a vast Islamic development that is being run by the East Plano Islamic Center, right? Which is Plano, Texas, is outside of Dallas. And they have built this massive development with a mega mosque that is wrapped up in a nice bow about diversity and inclusion and togetherness and unity and all the rest of it. But I'd just like to see them if a whole bunch of Jewish people said they wanted to buy property there. Let's take a look at how they present it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure many of you have heard of the amazing project that we're doing known as Epic Cities. We are, alhamdulillah, constructing an entire city half an hour from downtown Dallas, literally 30 minutes from our own Plano Masjid over here. It's going to be a city of over 1,000 people. Alhamdulillah, we launched this website last year and we sold the entire phase 1 within days. Because of the demand, we are now opening up Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches is an exclusive opportunity for those who want to be within minutes of Epic City, but also want larger plots. We have 2 Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches 1 begins with 1 acreage and goes up to 5 acreage. And Epic Ranches 2 has plots of half acre and also investment opportunities for those who want to build condominiums. Brothers and sisters, this is a limited time opportunity. It is an amazing time to invest for the future, not only in yourselves, but of your children after you. We are inshallah ta'ala going to change the entire da'wah scene by demonstrating to the world what it means to be a Muslim living in the West. To talk about the financial details.
So Luke, that's right by your home. That's right by where you were born and raised.
That's my hometown. Yeah, the Big D, as they call it. And
Dallas.
I don't mean divorce. I mean Dallas.
Okay, that video is a couple years old.
Yeah.
And they've actually built this now. So let's take a look at at the center of this whole development is a mega mosque.
Okay.
With the school, which is obviously an Islamic school. Take a look. Look at that teacher. I mean, that's like a madrasa. Those are like the madrasas I would see in Afghanistan or Pakistan. They talk about that they have a boys and girls school and at the center of this development. That's not like any other school in America.
No, that's not your typical American school, I would say. No.
Okay, so now this development, I've seen other videos where they're, the kids are making Palestinian flags and so on and so on. And there's obviously a lot of talk about the whole Palestinian-Israeli issue. I want to point out the fact that, this has gone from development now to actually it has been built. There were 2 significant legal actions that just happened. One is that the Attorney General of the state of Texas, Ken Paxton, he launched an investigation into the holding company for potential violations in the Consumer Act.
Right.
And then Greg Abbott, the governor, has announced he's taken action on them for a funeral home that's not licensed. Okay, so I hear that and I'm like, I get it. The U.S. legal system works slowly. There's a Bill of Rights. There's freedom of religion. There's the Constitution. There's all of these things. So this is tricky water to navigate. There's also all the politics involved in this. But this is akin to getting Al Capone for tax evasion, right? Instead of
Right.
mass murder.
Yep. So I mean, you know, Lara, you have lived in a Islamic countries working before, and you know the culture. What is fear based and what is reality when it comes to something like this? Because there's obviously a lot of different opinions around this being built and changing our culture and what that looks like. What's your view of this now, living within an Islamic country and now seeing it, with their goal of bringing it here, enlarging it, growing it?
Okay, so I mean, first of all, I lived in Iraq for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Afghanistan for several years, and I loved the people. I loved being there.
Right.
Right. However, I was a foreign woman in a culture where none of the local women could live like I was living.
Right.
Not even a snowball's chance in hell that they could even get close to that. I mean, let's not forget, in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan today, women are held as prisoners in their own home, and now and they're treated as domestic chattel. I mean, young girls are traded, to settle domestic disputes or to pay for a cow or whatever, sold off to be raped every day of their lives by a man 20, 30, 40 years older than them. Right. They're banned from public life. They're banned from school. They're banned from all forms of education. They're banned from the workplace. I mean, they're prisoners in their home. They have no rights. I mean, are you kidding me? Okay, so I say that, my time in Afghanistan, obviously I was there under the Taliban, and then the Taliban was overthrown. And so, it was very different, but I got to live under a different set of rules that foreign women get treated differently. When it comes to this place, there are so many things here to talk about. I just want to lay out. So on the, from their point of view, I've listened to many speeches by the Islamic cleric that is kind of the face of this, and they argue, their whole argument, their whole position is that they are about unity and togetherness and being part of the community and so on, right? They've got all the buzzwords. Yeah. They know exactly how to make this sound like it is not what it is, which is an Islamic enclave that is both politically and culturally completely and utterly different to American culture and society. And then if you criticize them on the other side, what happens? You are immediately accused of being Islamophobic or racist, right, and so on. I actually think it's important always to listen to people and hear what they say in their own words. And so I would like to hear from the cleric in his own words. But before we go to that clip, I want to mention that this episode is brought to you by someone who couldn't be more different to this political culture, someone who is working very hard to put America first, and that is Ascent Nutrition. I love Ascent Nutrition. I am actually taking my supplements, Luke. I know this is hard for you to believe.
I've seen you take them. You're taking them regularly.
Yes, I'm taking them every day. In fact, I upped it from 1 to 2. I take the fulvic acid. I've been taking other ones, trying them out. But I had to learn about them because it's, this is a whole nother language for me. And so I had the opportunity to sit down with Lance and hear about some of the products. And I want to share that with you so you can figure it out. Take a look. Lance Shuttler, welcome to Going Rogue.
Thank you for having me, Lara. I really appreciate it.
You traveled all this way to this tiny little town in the middle of flyover country. And we are here to talk about what you have done, what you created. What's your best product, Lance? What's the best one?
I think the humic and fulvic is the one that I would,
Say it again.
the humic and fulvic acid.
Where is it?
So it's this one right here.
Okay. Why do you like that one?
Because of the times that we're in right now and that we have been in, and the issues that we need to address in society. So what I mean by that is the toxicity. So we're just inundated with toxins, the fluoride, the pesticides, the, chemtrails, all the stuff that's being sprayed in the air. We're just hyper accumulating all these things. And so we need to detox. In my view, I always suggest people sauna or sweat. Very easy to get rid of toxins, but then take things that can help to bind to heavy metals and chelate them out. So
And that's what this does?
definitely. So if you look on PubMed, they'll show how if you look up humic and fulvic acid, it will bind to heavy metals.
Should I take one of these right now?
If you want.
Yeah, okay.
So it attaches to heavy metals, can chelate them out, binds to viruses, bacteria, fungus, mold, and also can detox these out.
Wow.
And so it's super strong stuff. And we know there's a lot of detoxificants out there.
Yeah.
But humic and fulvic, when I learned about this 14 years ago, I literally made a commitment to myself and to God that I would get this stuff out there in any way that I could to help people, because there's so much benefit to it in what it does. So it also energizes the cells by being the strongest free radical scavenger or antioxidant. And so this gives energy to cells, it detoxes toxins, and it actually can combine with nutrients and shuttle them into cells.
Am I going to feel different if I take this? Like what happens to me over time?
Gut health can improve. They'll feel more energy, brain health wise, or just physically.
It's not stinky like a lot of vitamins
No.
and supplements, which I appreciate because I have the nose of a bloodhound and I don't like fishy smells and I don't like earthy smells. Yuck.
Yep.
So this has no smell. This is good.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a lady who she had psoriasis for 30 years on her back and on her arms. She had swelling in her hands, a lot of inflammation, and she just, wanted help. And she, prior to taking that product, she took a magnet and she put it up on her chest and then her torso, and the magnet stuck. We could speculate as to what was going on. Definitely heavy metals accumulation. We've all got heavy metals in us, but it was enough to where it stuck. She took one bottle of that, so 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
It was the only thing different she did. And the psoriasis dried up and flaked off, went away completely. The swelling in her hands went away completely. And these are her words too, completely went away. Not just like helped, but completely went away.
Wow.
And then the magnet, she did the magnet test again and it didn't stick. And so it makes sense. It's an incredible review and testimony and real,
Yeah.
but it also just makes logical scientific sense that if these things bind to heavy metals and different toxins and they can chelate and pull them out, then the body's going to respond well. And that's what happened with her. And we've got a lot of people who feel that. The humic and fulvic in particular with the gut.
Yeah.
A lot of people really feel like better digestion, less bloated, just feel better overall.
Okay, so back with the show. I want you to hear from the cleric who is the face of this epic mosque that they're this Islamic enclave. They call it a city that they're building. It looks like a city. It's, of course, legally not an actual city. And they talk repeatedly about expanding, and this being the center, the Islamic center of North America, right? This is the center of it. To me, that sounds more like a command and control center than it does like a headquarters. But you listen to what he has to say.
Let us bring about a revolution. If every one of us, brothers and sisters, we are in this audience over 10,000. If every one of us made it our goal that I'm going to change the minds of 10 people, 10 people, I'm going to change the minds of 10 of my colleagues, 10 of my friends, 10 of the people I associate with in the next year. that would automatically mean 100,000 people are now seeing the world from a different perspective. If all the Muslims of America did the same thing, what would happen? We would literally bring about a political and cultural revolution. This is our job in this country. Here's the point. In an entire
Listen to this one.
of 1.5 billion people, we are the only Muslims who have the political clout to change the system legally from within. You can elect a person who wants the Sharia political engagement about the establishment of a Islamic political system entity to enact, these realities of the Sharia.
We have about 225 Muslim elected officials in the country. Today we have 35 offices for care nationwide. Tell me what you're doing different to help Islam to have deeper roots in this country and for the next generation to be ready to take over, inshallah.
What do you think?
Well, I want you to get in. The law of the land is the Constitution, and we also have the identity of America. And specifically, I'm a Texan, almost a Texan first, and then American second. But
like any true Texan.
Proud Texan. But when you see, when you hear something like this, that they want to, have a cultural revolution and change the culture of, what we celebrate as America, that's a big concern to me. And we also, we can get into Europe and the UK, and the open borders. We're seeing we're seeing a future, maybe plan, see that play out in UK and Europe. And so I don't want that here, but that's a concern, without sounding racist or Islamophobic. And
we're not going to play the racism, Islamophobia game. We're not going to play that game. It's nonsense.
Right.
In fact, Islamophobia is a made-up term
Yeah.
that was created by George Soros's Open Society Foundation and his whole network. Number of years ago, the papers on this were actually leaked by an organization called DC Leaks, and then they've been scrubbed from the internet. I've tried to find them again, over and over, and they've vanished. But unfortunately for them, I still remember what was in there, and it was literally a playbook describing of how to create. They defined it, they created the term, and they were training people on how to spread this, right? And how to target journalists, elected officials, academia, teachers and professors, schools, and and think tanks, and so on and so on. So they didn't just create the term; they had a plan for implementing this term into the conversation. They even had lists of things that if people talk about this is when you raise Islamophobia, et cetera, et cetera. And the purpose of these tactics is to shut down the conversation.
Yeah, silence people and cancel them.
And the result of that is that you have an Islamic enclave that is now grown right in Plano, Texas, or Josephine, Texas, right in the middle of rural America, outside of Dallas, and no one dares say a word.
Right.
They've just let it happen. And those people, like there's a guy, John Guandolo, who's been working on this kind of issue for years. John Guandolo is one of the most attacked people that you can ever imagine. If you look up his name, and what'll they say? That he's racist, that he's Islamophobic, and so on and so on. I've met John a couple of times. He did not strike me that way at all.
Right.
I'm not going to play that game because it's nonsense, right? If you look at what that man is talking about, that cleric, I think his name is Al-Qadir, right? He is talking about political and cultural revolution.
Right.
Do you want?
And it's a radicalized, version of that, right?
Even if it's
Sharia
not,
law.
even if it's not, do you want a cultural revolution,
No, I
or
do
do you
not.
want to preserve your culture?
I want to preserve my culture.
So, are you allowed to do that?
That's what's funny is, as we've become the enemy of the state, the white heterosexual Christian male is kind of the last 4 years I feel like we've been somewhat demonized.
Yeah,
and especially
not
we speak
somewhat,
up.
completely
we
demonized.
We have. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're the bad guys.
Yeah, and I think that they want to silence us, then keep us, and the easiest things.
And think about the Second World War.
Yeah.
Who defeated the Nazis? In no small part.
Right.
Big, hefty, strong, brave, white heterosexual guys from all over towns and cities all over America, right? I mean, a lot of the Medal of Honor winners, where do they come from? Tiny little rural towns in America. People that were willing to stand up for freedom and fight and do what was right. So, of course, you have to be removed from the battlefield.
But it's easy to tag us as white supremacists if you want to preserve your culture and your cultural identity in America. It's an easy label, right?
Oh no, it's not. It's not an easy label. It's been turned into an easy label.
Right.
So if you want to defend your culture, if you want to protect it, or if you want to preserve it, you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
You are now an extremist, and you're a white supremacist.
Christian
and so on.
nationalist is the term they use.
And by the way, colonizers are all evil, right? All white people are colonizers, but in a sense, this is cultural colonization.
It is. Yeah.
And political. And these are not, he says, we can create a revolution. This is what we can create. If all of you will do this, we can be part and lead a cultural and political revolution. I mean, I don't know about you, but, I'm an immigrant. I came here to adopt to the American way of life.
Yes, and celebrate it. Yes.
And celebrate it.
Right.
And I didn't come here to change it and make it something else. And by the way, we're not just talking about small changes, right? I mean, look at that school. Do you want your daughter being educated like that?
No, I do not.
Okay, so then people will say, well, why can't your daughter doesn't have to? She can go to American school.
Right.
Why can't they have their own schools? Well, in lots of the videos they talk about this being the first of many.
Right.
And they talk about expanding and expanding and expanding. Well, and then you heard that guy from CARE, the Muslim Association, right? Saying that we need this so that the next generation can take over.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't deny. Does it mean that every Islamic person in America supports this? No. Does it mean that every Islamic person in America wants to take over? No, it doesn't mean that. And that's not what anyone would be stupid enough to say. But what is it exactly that is being taught inside that command and control center? How would you know? Would they say they don't discriminate, but do they want, are they going to let in one or two token Jewish people so they can say that they're diverse?
Yeah.
Or
are they teaching that non-Muslims are infidels? I mean,
well, let's hear. So, recently, of course, the Palestinian issue has been exploited to drive a wedge throughout America. And it's interesting because the Palestinian issue used to only really echo on the Arab street. But now there's so many, there's such a huge Islamic population across the West that this is now an issue that is right on our doorstep, right? So here is the same cleric talking about the arrest of the Muslim student who was arrested for supposedly for his ties, his support for Hamas and all the other things he was doing in violation of his visa, which was a green card, which is still a visa.
Right.
I was a green card holder, so I'm very familiar with this. And of course, the argument of the left was, oh, it's free speech. It's free speech. He's protected. And the Trump administration's position was he violated the terms of his visa. He's out of here, right? And notice no one's able to challenge that because that is absolutely the law. But listen to what this guy is preaching about this issue.
As we speak, there's a massive issue taking place that is going to deal with every one of you in this audience. The president, as you're aware, has carte blanche decided a particular person, a Muslim, a Palestinian, does not have the rights that everybody else does. No court of law, no system, no jury. The president's signature has arrested a legal green card citizen for protesting against Israel and for supporting the rights of the Palestinians. And again, if you feel this is not appropriate, I disagree with you, because this deals with me and you right here and now. If he's allowed to get away with this, the next is going to be naturalized citizens. How many of you are naturalized citizens? As we speak right now, this case is going to be a litmus test for what follows. The fact of the matter, and I'm sorry to be blunt, but we don't have time for political correctness. The majority of us are disconnected from what is going on. We feel that's not going to affect us. No! History has shown, even the ups and downs of this country have shown, if we don't rally together, if we don't make sure that all of us have the same freedoms, what is happening is blatantly unconstitutional. For 200 years, the Supreme Court has ruled that a green card holder has the same rights as an American citizen.
Okay, you're killing me. I got to stop it here. Okay, for 200 years, the Supreme Court has ruled that a green card holder has the same rights as an American citizen. What a load of nonsense.
Yeah, where's he getting that?
He's making it up. He's literally making it up. First of all, did you hear that he referred there to a green card holder citizen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No such thing.
No such thing. No such thing. So the man is conflating the rights of a citizen with that of a naturalized citizen and a green card holder. He's putting all those things together.
Right.
A naturalized citizen has the same rights as an American citizen. A green card holder is a visa. You're a visa holder. You know, I got death threats once, and I called the FBI.
I bet more than that.
Okay. One of the times I got death threats. When I arrived in the U.S., I was living in Iraq at the time. I arrived in the U.S. for work, and I called the FBI. And one of the things that they said to me when they called me back was, we verified, this threat is coming from this, blah, blah, blah. However, we can't help you. Because why? You're not a U.S. citizen.
Wow.
I was a green card holder. I can't remember. I was on a visa. I was on a visa then. So they were limited, in terms of the things that they could do. There are limits to your visa. That the reality is that no government in the world is obliged to give you a visa. They can pick and choose. And they can deny you a visa based on anything they want. You can object and you can try to fight it, but they still have that right. So here he is basically making accusations about the U.S. president, and the current administration, stating things that are not true, fear-mongering, telling all those people there, you're all naturalized citizens, they're coming for you next.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Keith, I want to hear your opinion on this. Yes.
Let's see what Keith has to say. Keith's been quiet today.
Howdy. Well, I think that how do you fight this is the question. Like, how do you go about, sort of engage in this, in sort of batting back, I guess, in the culture war. But I think the biggest way is we have to, as Americans and as patriots, we have to assert our own culture with pride, and we have to defend it culturally. We have to teach our kids. It starts in the home. We have to take control of our schools on the local level. That's the number one thing we can do, is we have to keep the hearts and minds of our children and in our communities.
Well, that's the whole point of inserting 15, 16, 17, 18 million illegal immigrants in a very short space of time, right?
Yeah.
It's because they don't understand what it means to be American. They don't share that love of Americana, American history. They don't know what it means, what the culture of America is really about. And the question then becomes, how many of them want to?
Right.
How many of them really wanted that? Do you want to continue to follow your cultural practices? And by the way, what is the law of the land inside your Islamic enclave? Because there's been, they'll say that anything that you say about this online is completely wrong and it's a lie. This cleric is out there saying he's got the backing of the mayor of Plano and the mayor of Richardson and the mayor of another county there, another town there, and that the police chief is there, and that they're all kissing the ring, right? They're all bending over themselves to show, oh, we welcome you in our community and we've got your back and we're going to look after you. Don't you worry. Anyone says anything about you come to us. You come to us. I don't know how many, of those people are bought off. Maybe none of them. But it's a fair question to us because it's very obvious listening, if you look a little bit deeper and you listen to what this cleric, who's the face of this, has said in the past. I mean, he believes in the supremacy of Sharia law.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? Well, and that Sharia law is God's law and it's above all other laws.
Will you get an overview of Sharia law that's not constitution. It's not following any bit of the Constitution. It doesn't align with anything.
He believes that women should only do tasks that their husbands permit them to do. He said that in previous speeches. I mean, there's some of it is political,
right,
and some of it is cultural,
right,
and some of it is ideological, and religion and faith-based. it's extraordinary to me that this is happening in Texas and you don't hear about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not just happening here, though. If you look at Paterson, New Jersey, right, there's a similar takeover there. And when you look a little further afield, I remember a few years ago, I mean, the Paris attacks came out of an Islamic suburb of Brussels, right, which was pretty much a no-go area. I knew a Romani, a gypsy guy who was a beat cop in that district. And the things that he described were absolutely unbelievable. But there were actual districts of Brussels where there were only Islamic candidates running for office, and they were running on a platform of Sharia law and of separating public spaces for men and women, you know, and so on and so on. I mean, they're advocating for things that are culturally, ideologically, completely at odds with Western culture and values. So yes, okay, Governor Abbott is going after them for operating a funeral home without a license, and you know, Ken Paxton is taking action to really the beginning.
But this is after it's already built. You know, where have they been? It's like, okay, the stadium's built, they're ready to play ball. You know, why weren't you there at the groundbreaking of it all?
Well, because they hide behind the Constitution and the First Amendment, right?
Right.
And behind, you know, these attacks in the media that say if you question anything like this, then somehow you're a bad person. And they're allowed to fight for their culture and for their ideology, but you're not allowed to fight for yours. When you do it, you're a white supremacist.
Right.
Right? And nationalism has become so demonized. So, you know, there's another example here. I mean, you look at Europe, yes. I mean, there are these rape gangs in Sweden and in the Nordic countries and in Germany. Years ago, you know, this is being a former German town that has some German connections. And I remember one of the mothers of one of my kids, her aunt worked at a Hilton hotel. And on New Year's Eve, every New Year's Eve, all of the women who worked for Hilton had to stay at the hotel and were not allowed to travel because of these Islamic migrant rape gangs that would just, you know, carry out a reign of terror on the streets at night on New Year's Eve. It started out then. Now you have the UK talking about grooming gangs. These are not grooming gangs. These are Islamic rape gangs that have been operating in the UK for years.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, Texas has allowed this to be built right under their noses, but over there, they're actually allowing their own children to be raped and sometimes brutally physically damaged, and they're silent about it. They don't even now, when they're talking about it, they don't even call it what it is. And then, you know, on top of all of that, what else do you have happening in Europe? You've had attacks for years in France, in the south of France, in Toulouse, and other places, attacks against Jewish people that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to say anything. I know a Catholic priest who told me he will never wear his priest collar on the streets of Paris anymore because he will be attacked.
Wow.
Yes. And then you remember a few years ago when Fox News was absolutely savaged. It was during the Trump administration the first time around. They were savaged for reporting that there were these areas of Paris, the banlieue, where there were sort of no-go Islamic areas. And everybody said it was a lie, and they were, you know, most of the media was mocking Fox for that. Completely true. I mean, Paris, the city of Paris is surrounded by what the French call banlieue, which are their suburbs. I tried to go into one of the banlieues a couple of years ago, and with a very brave person who spent a lot of time in the Islamic world, he absolutely refused to take me because he said, we will be killed. A couple of days before, they had just killed 2 French policemen that had gone in there. These areas are, you know, almost entirely ungoverned, and they are a law unto themselves. And we're still lying about it in the media and treating people who talk about it as if they're evil somehow.
So what is your opinion of that? That's because the globalists run our media and they want this. They want culture, you know, your identity, your sovereign identity to disappear, and they want it just to be a melting pot of chaos. I mean, what's your view?
I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious at this point. What does no borders mean? It means a war on sovereignty.
Right.
They don't want nations.
Yeah.
And the
And
strongest.
if you care about your sovereignty, I mean, it's now that's the liberal worldview is you welcome everybody, and this is open borders, and culture needs to evolve and change. And it's
well,
just
the liberal, so the progressive
progressive worldview.
is that if you build a city like that,
Yeah.
and it's a 1,000 homes, and all of it is Muslim, then it's diverse.
Right.
But if all of those people were white
Right.
or Christian, then it would be a symbol of Nazism, fascism,
Exactly.
and racism.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah. But Victor Davis Hanson is a great professor of classical studies and a great voice. He's
Yeah,
written many
he's
books.
great.
He's wonderful. I mean, the town he lives in, the town in Fresno where he was born, where his parents were born, his grandparents, they've been there for generations. Same house, same house even. And Victor was just laughing, saying to me, when I grew up, it was sort of 90% white here. It's now something like, I don't know, 95% Hispanic. So when he was growing up, it was not considered diverse. Now that most of the white people have been driven out and it's mostly Hispanic, now it's diverse.
Right.
It's like, come on. What I mean, and it's weird for me to be having this conversation because I'm definitely a person who I've always embraced other cultures and religions, and I see all people as equal. For me, they're all equal. But I'll tell you where it ends for me. I don't want to wear a hijab.
No.
I don't want my children to wear a hijab. I don't want my daughters to. Not only that, when you have a lot of people will say all the time, well, it's not true that women are not treated well in the Quran. Muhammad's wife was, a woman who had her own business, and she worked. They give you all these arguments. All of that is propaganda. It's anti-Islamic. It's whatever. And my answer to them is this: great, I understand. Islam is misunderstood. It's been misrepresented. You point to a country like Saudi Arabia, or you point to Afghanistan and say, oh, no. This is not real Islam. This is been distorted. This has been. So I say, okay, so which country can you point to where it's been properly implemented?
Right.
They can't. Okay, so that's a lose. Okay, so then tell me this then. I have 2 daughters. Pick a country where they can have a better life, where they can have the same rights that they have in this country or any country in the West. Find me the Islamic country where they can have that. Guess what? It also doesn't exist. So does that mean that I'm anti-Islam?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. 100% false. But the reality is that I want to protect the culture and the values and the rights that we have in our culture and society, and I don't want to be demonized for that, and I don't think I should be.
You shouldn't. And I think about I traveled the first time to Islam country, to Dubai, and I saw firsthand. It was I was doing a film project over there, and there was a sheikh. He would drive in his Lamborghini, and a whole harem would follow in a Mercedes Sprinter van, totally in their covered gowns. I mean, it was just to imagine that, happening here in Texas. I mean, and not being loud about standing up against, or just standing for our culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need it. We have pride in our state, but I think we've already seen not taking a stand. And to me, it's okay it's not just okay. We need to stand up for our belief system, our culture, what we've built here, and not just because of cancel culture, be silent, right?
Well, we're going to stay on this. We're going to stay on this, and we're going to continue to follow it.
Yeah.
And, whatever people want to do in their own countries, I mean, you can like it, you can not like it. It's their business, not yours, right? It's not my business. I'm not going to tell you how to live in Saudi Arabia or Iran or anywhere else. I'm not going to say to you, I think it's great. I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to look for things in the culture that I like and that can be celebrated. And I'm going to be, equally as open and honest about the things I don't. Okay, so switching gears completely. You missed most of it today, Luke. You're going to be sorry. We have a great new episode coming out. The Going Rogue. We went rogue this time with Ross Kennedy on supply chains global supply chains and China, and this proposed new action that the Trump administration is looking at actually was investigated by the Biden administration, and the Trump people took this on when they came in. And it has the potential to shut down the largest intelligence collection operation in history for the economic world, for the world of global trade.
Wow.
And shipping through. Because why? Because the Chinese use a system on all their ships which link right back into the security state, and the U.S. is not having any of it anymore. They're focusing on the. They're going to try to pass this off as another tariff issue. It's not about tariffs, and this is actually a really important episode, and it affects all of us. It affects the supply of food, everything that you can imagine. I think it really came home to us during COVID when we saw that
The breakdown.
China could stop shipping our medicine anytime they wanted. I mean, who thought that was a good idea? Okay, so for that and more, don't miss this week's episode of Going Rogue with Lara Logan. And if you want to share, like, subscribe, or support us, go to laralogan.com/give. And we appreciate having you with us. This is a cool journey. We are uncovering some really interesting things, and we're happy to have you with us for the ride.